welcome to this panel about oracles and AMMs. I'm super excited to be here on stage with our panelists with various different backgrounds. So I'm sure we'll have very interesting talks with many insights we can share. I hope there will be some takeaways and learning for you. Let's start with the panelists quickly introducing themselves. Maybe if you can tell us what you're working on, what you're passionate about, and who you are. Hugo, please go ahead.
Very well. Hello, everyone. So I'm Hugo. I've been working at Team for almost the past couple of years, and I'm now joining ScopeLift, Web3 engineering studio. We have done a lot of active work on Uniswap, for example, also on Tally, ZK Sync, and in the past on Optimism, Agora, and we are also the developers of Umbra, which was one of the first implementations of stealth addresses, the first implementation of stealth addresses on Ethereum back in 2021.
Hello, everyone. I'm Daosasha. I'm leading BD right now at 1inch, contributing to Web3 since 2016. I believe the most passionate thing in the DeFi is basically freedom, so that's why I'm here. And this is what makes me special, and basically not me, but the industry special. And 1inch is the biggest DeFi aggregator in EVM space. We're also providing the B2B services, but I think we can touch a little bit more and dive deeper later on in the discussion. Thanks a lot for having us.
Hey everyone, I'm Fahim. Super excited to be here. I'm currently a research engineer at Flashbots and previously worked at Base and Axelar. And currently what I'm working on at Flashbots is bringing prop AMMs, which have seen 40% of volume market share on Solana, to EVM. And I'm just super passionate about block building and making markets more efficient.
Great. So we have builders, security experts, and general people passionate about the topic here. So that should be great. Now, since I'm a security person myself, please forgive me that we start with some recent incident around oracles. Unfortunately, recently, we all know there was this Moonwell hack, right? So there was a problem due to incorrect pricing information, and sadly, some money was lost. So let's investigate a bit on what went wrong. Could you please start introducing what happened first, and then how we can prevent such mishaps in the future?
Yeah, definitely. So, at the root of the cause was a mispricing on the Chainlink oracle that Moonwell was using for the stake of ETH and the restake of ETH. I haven't yet understood what happened with Chainlink. I'm not even sure that that information has come out, but it will be important to get some clarity on it. But overall, it just highlights all the issues that exist when very complex systems also rely on very complex oracles. And also back in 2021, Vitalik made this weird proposal for Uniswap to become the token for an oracle function that Uniswap will have. So Uni will become the token for an oracle function that Uniswap will become. And that idea then just died on the governance forum. But I think it will have been really interesting to continue exploring that as having a very robust system become a complement for very high value transactions that can happen typically during exploits, but also if we are talking about all the institutions that are trying to adopt the EVM as a new base layer for financial transactions, to have more trust in what they are doing if they are settling figures in the seven figure transaction.
This really makes it clear that more research is needed, more work on resilience and transparency here. So should we, when we use oracles, should we put additional safeguards in place, like preventing the use of price spikes or too rapid changes in price? So what are the pros and cons here?
Not sure anyone wants to go ahead. I'll just say that the issue then is balancing out user experience with then the issues of making something potentially a little bit less permissionless if you are adding a bunch of fallbacks to the system. But then if you are just trading, then you can use perhaps just Chainlink or PIF or whatever. But suddenly if the trading volume on a single transaction, even though the Moonwell thing was a repeated transaction, so you'll need to think on how to make sure that it will work. But then you'll be able to complement it with something that was more robust.
Yeah. So we see there's no transparency on chain if we use like an off-chain aggregator like Chainlink. So how could we leverage AMMs or on-chain price information to?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind, like right now, basically, as an example, lending protocols can use on-chain AMMs as an oracle to basically identify like how does it work. They just check in the major DEX pool, like let's say USDC to ETH on the price, and then they are identifying that time-weighted average price if this basically order has to be liquidated or not. So this is an alternative version that could basically maybe we can bring this alternative to the centralized oracles and using this decentralized AMMs, this high level.
So maybe another angle here. When we think about oracles, we mostly think about oracle returning a price. But could an oracle also return more information, maybe more information about underlying state, how this price was determined? Would this help the consuming system to to reason about the validity of the price?
I think that's an interesting idea. It will depend on the logic on the other side. If you were able to make the system understand by having the context on how the information was generated, if that was then legitimate. Because, for example, on the Moonwell hack, then what happened was that I think on the restaked pair, they changed the price of ETH to the orders of like 100,000 or something, and so you just crashed the whole math behind the calculation of the collateral. But in that specific case, what were you implying? That the oracle will have to justify how that price will be in the orders of 100,000 something for one ETH?
Potentially,
yeah. Yeah, definitely. That will be an interesting research area. Yeah. But even TWAPs, as you were saying, like they have been around for also since 2021, perhaps at least 4 years. But there's still a lot of issues with that. Like they're not magic bullets, and many folks really believe they are worse for manipulation than using volume as the weight. So
exactly, like volume could be one indicator. So, but generally, what's your opinion here? Should the oracle be responsible to do this and only deliver a valid price, or is the oracle only responsible to deliver many informations and the systems then need to work with that data to see if the price is reasonable? Which side are you on?
Yeah, I'm typically on the side of simplicity here on the oracles, because they're just so important for everything that crypto is trying to achieve. But of course, like there will be a limit to the simplicity you can have in the system. So I think this is more about like how solid will be the research around it, and especially like how effective is the implementation of it. I wouldn't say there's like one design that's particularly better than other in abstract. It will be more about how you make it happen.
If you don't mind, I can jump in here. Like I'm still on this kind of self-custody DeFi world where we're trying to not avoid using any custodial solutions like oracles. And I don't know if you heard, like yesterday we just released this Aqua protocol, which is kind of basically acting as an AMM. And it's a completely different approach where you don't even need to put your liquidity anywhere. You just keep your liquidity in your wallet and then just choosing different strategies that are on the market. And once you want to basically move to that strategy, you just do kind of exceptions from your wallet to play with this strategy. And then like the money is not even migrating anywhere. So basically you are acting yourself as an oracle to generate any strategies from your wallet. So, and it's another very different approach that we are now kind of trying to put on the market and generating this. Maybe if you want to check it out and answer the question, I can.
Yeah, I'm sure we will have time to talk about this later on. Thanks a lot for the interesting insight. So before we move on, let's quickly switch to the other side, right? So far we are trusting the oracle, but what about oracle extracted value? If the oracle would try to do that, then it kind of falls back to the protocol to implement some safeguards before consuming the data. What's your take here?
Yeah, definitely. I'll say that it's mostly an issue of whether the protocol can, like on the one hand, the incentives on the oracles doing that will be negligible, but there will be many people trying to, like, of course, exploit Oracle for the gain there. But I think there are like two stakeholders here. So the first is the oracles trying to save their reputation and being as robust as possible, because even with the Moonwell incident, there's still a lot of uncertainty of what happened with Chainlink. And Chainlink is great, BIF is great, they're fighting their fight, they have their audiences and their use cases, but then, like, from the perspective of the Oracle itself, it was problematic that Chainlink was caught in this, and maybe users only lost $1 million, but then Moonwell got stuck with like almost 5 million in bad debt, and so that's bad for everyone, and it's unclear where the responsibility lies here. And so, just from the perspective of an Oracle, like from the perspective of the Oracle builders themselves, it will be really important that these responsibilities were clear, and there will be even a market opportunity for the oracles to get maybe some kind of cover or even some kind of insurance, but so cover to like build some trust on the system here. And for example, also Aave launched their app 2 days ago with like 1 million in user deposit funds. So we're getting all these fallback systems that we have been having in TradFi for a long time also to crypto, and that's good for what matters, which is the end user. On the other end, what we have here is then like the protocols themselves, the lending protocols or any other kind of protocols that require Oracle use to make DeFi relevant and interesting, and not just a bubble. And so within that, I think then that the fallback is, on the one end, again, cover and some kind of insurance, be it like themselves, the protocols running their own insurance funds, like PerpSex used to do back in the day and still do. But then on the other end, just making sure that they go really deep in their protection. And everyone was shocked when Balancer got hacked also a couple of weeks ago, because they have had so many audits and they use monitoring and they did everything right, which they were doing, but still there's never enough when the incentives are there. And with oracles being so powerful, they will always be a major target for manipulation, especially if you have all these dependencies trying to bring off-chain data into the on-chain world. Yeah.
I wanted to ask like a question here, actually. What's your thoughts on using multiple oracles?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's like the quick win out there. And one of the implementations will be that one that I was mentioning. For example, you can use Chainlink, and then you'll use an implementation of using Uniswap as an oracle just for like high-value transactions. And this could be written in the code, or the users could select whether they wanted to interact with higher latency with a protocol, so that they would have more higher trust in what was happening, as opposed to a user rule privilege efficiency, for example. But then other implementations will be able to be done. Like right now, only 2 major oracles are there, but I think the market is ripe for disruption, because it's such a complex topic that someone else is going to come up with a third.
Great. I want to highlight one important point you made. You pointed out responsibility. It's unclear who was responsible. And this sounds super dangerous to me, right? If it's not clear who is responsible, everyone probably thinks the other side is responsible. And that's super dangerous for the whole ecosystem. So there's definitely more discussions to be had around this and clarity going forward, what we do. So now, Fahim, I heard you were working on a very hot topic recently, prop AMMs. Can you quickly start introducing this to our audience before we dive in with some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So to give like a high-level overview of prop AMMs, it's basically an AMM, but a market maker is actively managing the liquidity and the prices of the pools in that AMM, which kind of sounds ironic considering an AMM stands for automated market maker. However, on Solana, this has gained a lot of traction where it grew to over 40% of volume traded, like the market share. And this is because it's giving users like better execution, better prices, and giving them kind of more like a better execution that's kind of similar to centralized exchanges. And being curious about, hey, this is gaining so much volume and so much traction, I kind of decided to look into like, why isn't this currently on EVM chains? Why is it not on Base, Unichain, Optimism? And it turned out that one of them, like from my research, one of the main reasons for this is because of how expensive it is to do updates on EVM chains. On Solana, you're able to update the prices, or more specifically, a price curve, with only like 100 compute units. And you can think of compute units as like analogous to gas. But on EVM, that would be around like 5,000 to 20,000 gas units, depending on how you're using the SS Store opcode. That's kind of like a high-level intro, but basically what I've been working on is bringing a way to have these updates for cheap, the price updates for cheap, and more importantly, make it so that malicious or toxic traders or arbitragers cannot front run these price updates to pick off a stale quote. And so doing that by adding a priority lane for updates.
Nice, that sounds super good. So basically there are fundamental architectural differences between Ethereum and Solana. You found a way around this. How is it looking on the off-chain side? When aggregating off-chain, I guess you're not limited by any of the on-chain constraints.
You mean the way how we are getting the price raise or what?
Yes, so you're not limited by any block sequence, right, or by any time delay.
Maybe you can help me to what your thought. I'm not really good at it. I'm a blondie girl here
like
now.
sort of comparing like RFQs or like centralized exchanges.
No, technically I was just thinking that since you aggregate in off-chain, right, you can immediately use the most up-to-date price and just
but we're aggregating on-chain. Like everything, like 1inch is aggregating all the data on-chain.
Okay, so you're also limited by this on Ethereum.
Yeah, Ethereum or right now in Solana. Yeah.
So I think this would be like a great point to kind of like mention one of the benefits of having like prop AMMs as like an addition to aggregators is, say for example, if I'm a trader and I want to do some sort of logic in real time, like maybe I'm writing a smart contract that is checking certain price of an asset, and if there's like a price discrepancy between two different pools or two different price places, I will do an arbitrage between the two. If I wanted to do that on chain, which is commonly seen with a lot of spam transactions on Base, a lot of arbitrage transactions on the Base, which kind of have like a weird function name if you look on Basescan. If I wanted to have like logic that checks these like for arbitrages on chain at runtime, I can't really do that with aggregators. I can't really do that with RFQs. I can't do that with existing systems outside of AMMs, where price discovery is done on chain. And prop AMMs kind of take that idea of, hey, how can we do price discovery on chain? How can I check what the price is at the runtime of my transaction? And make it so that these prices are more up to date with centralized exchanges and what the market maker is doing.
And this will be available. Like I'm really curious on that part because we're like aggregating this liquidity. And we're providing the better rates on both on most of the popular EVM chains. Then we came to Solana, and now we're using basically Jupiter to do it properly. And now you mention it, and this is kind of something that we need to talk outside of this conversation. But again, can you dive a little bit deeper on how you're getting this pricing on Solana and then bringing this price to Ethereum? What is the...
So it's not that the price is coming from Solana and being ported or bridged over to EVM. It's more like the market maker.
Okay, it's like an intent, like the way how intent works, or like...
Similar. It's like the market maker's updating the price based off their internal metrics or internal...
Okay. I see. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
It's more about the design, right? And the idea to move over. So with this new design, are there new security risks we need to be careful about? Do we still need TWAP protection in this context? I guess it defeats the idea of up-to-date price, right? So
Yeah. So
what do we do here?
So one of the concerns is how do we make sure that like users aren't like abusing this priority lane? Because if you have this dedicated block space at the very top of the block that gets executed first before any other transaction in that block, there might be some concerns of like if maybe some arbitrager or some toxic person or toxic trader might be using that priority lane to actually front run other market makers and use that dedicated block space in such a way where it's not actually supposed to be used for like things outside of like
I'm
updating
super worried
prices.
about that, and I fear this will happen.
Yeah. And so that's something I'm still researching into. We have like a solution where we have like a global storage smart contract. You can think of it as like a global dictionary. And we're making it so that only transactions specifically to that smart contract go to the top of the block. And this means that if there's any other associated logic, like if they're calling that smart contract, they can't bundle any associated logic to do like a swap at the top of the block. So that means it's just the price update at the top of the block.
Okay, so instead of TWAP protection, we would rely on this kind of... So other things to be careful about, other learnings that will have to be made before. Cool. Hugo, what do you think about the security of this? What's your general view of proper AMMs on EVM?
Yeah, like the first thing that was coming to mind was that like one of the major issues of the TWAP approach is that it will fail under market stress. And that's very bad for the principal use case of oracles in this context on the trading part. And so this will make definitely markets more efficient, which is key to get adoption and to make the finance part of DeFi relevant and material. So that was the interesting part. But then I was trying to understand like what were the possible dynamics of of market maker competition or of malicious market makers trying to game this system, and how are you designing and researching in this regard?
The question being to prevent malicious market makers from like abusing such a system?
Yeah. Because, for example, if in a particular market, a market maker has a majority of volume, then they will have a way to potentially manipulate that market. And one of the nice things about DeFi is that it became so easy to make markets for the long tail, as opposed to just rely on the markets for the big pairs on the sexes. And so I was thinking this could be problematic in that sense of democratizing liquidity.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question. And especially like a toxic market maker could actually be a problem in the sense where maybe at one block, they give a really good price. But on the block right after that, they kind of change the price, updated to something that's terrible. And then if the user is accessing that prop AMM through an aggregator, then they just executed a trade that actually ended up having a terrible price because they were lured in by a quote that was initially really good. And so it's like a great question. And so the way that like this could be tackled, this is like a great question and something I'm still researching into, is by having a aggregator kind of set the market structure in a sense where if they see that the quoted price is very different from the actual executed price, then they get that market maker or that prop AMM gets penalized and might not and might even be kicked off from the aggregator's platform because they're abusing such a system. And so there's approaches like that.
Yeah, makes all the sense. Like slashing in some way.
Yeah.
So we just discussed around fundamental differences between EVM and Solana, mainly about the costs of updating price and the speed. Are there any other considerations that differ across different networks?
Yeah, so one thing they mentioned I actually didn't touch on, I touched on briefly, but I should touch on more, is the speed side of things. Because on Solana is extremely fast, and it's actually different from EVM in the sense where like EVM, they have discrete blocks, but on Solana, it's a continuously streamed architecture where like a 400 millisecond slot is actually made up of a ton of like mini shreds, like an upper bound of 32,000 shreds per slot. And this means that you could potentially have like updates or trades happening like every like 80 milliseconds, for example, or even faster. Whereas in EVM, you have to wait for, if you're using flash blocks, you'd have to wait for the full 200 milliseconds before a trade can occur or before like a trade can be executed. Whereas on Solana, it can be like extremely fast. So that's like one of the things that I wanted to also point out in terms of the difference between Solana and EVM that's made trading really successful on Solana.
Thanks a lot of the insights. And just wanted to mention you have a very interesting blog entry around this topic, comparing how this works on Solana, on your work for this on Ethereum. So everyone who's interested, I can definitely recommend to read that.
Thank you.
Let's continue with you, Daosasha. So your new product, right?
Yeah, a 1-inch aqua. 1-inch aqua just released, yes.
Yeah. And so you're not using oracles directly?
No, as I mentioned, previously. So there is a big like difference. You want to answer? Go ahead, and then I can dive deeper.
Yeah. No, this was just you hinted in the beginning that you have more to share. So
That's the thing that basically why we are all here right now is we're trying to reimagine the way how basically the liquidity works, and this aqua is the way how you can get the liquidity. You can gather liquidity all over the market through just playing the different strategy from your own wallet, and this is also allowing you to not basically. You don't have to log the liquidity in a different wallets. You play with that with your liquidity on a different chains, and this is high level 8. Right now, it's available only for the devs. So if you want to check the white paper and read and maybe contribute even more to improve the way what we built, please go ahead, go to GitHub, do the pull request, or just mention something in our chats. This is this is something that I really want to share here in the audience.
Great. So we've already talked a lot about oracles, AMMs, how AMMs can use oracles, but also the other side, how AMMs can be used as oracle. Is there any particular aspect we haven't touched yet, or any aspect where you expect a change in the next 5 years?
Do you want to go, Sasha?
I can try to. Wait, I can just share the what? 1, 2, 3. I can just share one experience that we first with the we all talk. There is a big trend on the market which is TradFi. And when we're talking with the TradFi institutional players, they are not asking you about the TVL. They are asking you about the stability of the service, about which custody are you using, about the compliance part. And oracles potentially and should play a big role, most probably by just bringing more TradFi into the industry. Yeah, but this is something that we not against, but trying to avoid. And I would hope, like in 5 years from now, we will find some solution which is kind of synergetic, or there will be just 2 ways where like player like me going to one of the DeFi or like banking neobanks can choose whether he wants to go with a Oracle game or just DGen DeFi game, but I hope it will be available both. So I don't want to like disrupt the market, but this is something that hopefully will appear for the both.
Thank you.
Makes sense. I was thinking about what Optimus was saying, and I was thinking of something. Maybe someone is developing this, or maybe it's a stupid idea, but I was thinking there was like could be interesting to discuss, which will be like one of like the most important mechanism to like make markets more efficient is arbitrage. And currently we are talking about financial markets here, but on the Oracle part we are talking about data markets. And right now we have like 2 major Oracle providers, but potentially there will be more, and that market will have more participants. But in any case, whether we are talking about these participants or just about competing data feeds and using multiple oracles, or having even the AMMs themselves as the oracles, or even the market makers themselves as the oracles, we are now talking about a more complex than market for data. And eventually, like if this data fails due to manipulation, then the prices get all fucked up, and the arbitrageurs come in and solve for the prices. But in the meantime, you have like destroyed market value in potentially very pernicious ways. But so if you could have arbitrage for data, and perhaps like a meta protocol or some just meta markets for these data arbitrageurs to go in and say, yeah, like there's a discrepancy in these two data feeds, even within this block, and so like you can have a alt mechanism, for example, because then the data arbitrageurs will go there, will stake their reputation to flag something in the system. And if that will have resulted in poor execution, then they will be rewarded, and vice versa. So this could be an interesting approach to do some research on as well, and eventually implement. Because, yeah, it seems could be a nice way to solve part of the problem. Yeah.
So I definitely get the impression that oracles are one of the overlooked areas where people think, we have it already, it's easy, it's ready for use. But as it turns out, it's absolutely not fully true. There's still lots of research to be done.
Yeah.
It's definitely an area that's being overlooked by the...
Yeah, because everyone thinks of the ultimate oracle as like the single source of truth or the master source of truth. But on the one hand, maybe that's impossible because there will be not one source of truth, even on a objective market. And then on the other end, perhaps you don't need to aim to be that beautiful source of truth, because markets have been proven to be very efficient mechanisms in solving for what's true for the many, at least. And in the context of this problem, that's what we want, because it will solve most of the like traditional, maybe some edge cases will fall out of this, but most of the traditional angles, vectors of attack will be solved by such an approach.
So how do we bring this problem to the people's attention, right? Because it's a fundamental building blocks of many of the systems. And if anything goes wrong with oracles, we have a big hack exploit or something that went wrong and lots of value is lost. And not only value is lost, but also people's trust in the overall system.
Yeah.
So how do we identify these key points and make people aware of this, so there will be some push and initiative to correct this for the future?
Yeah, no, I'm aiming to persuade Optimus to write a blog post about this. So,
yes, you write the blog post and then we push it
soon.
I also wanted to give you the chance to talk about what do you see that the most important aspects to change in the next 5 years, or aspects that we haven't touched on yet.
This is going back to the topic of having like faster blockchains, I guess. But one of the things that I see in the future, specifically with DeFi, is how can we make trading faster? Because in TradFi, like trading is done in like milliseconds, microseconds, like it's just really fast. But right now on EVM, like our blocks are just as fast as 200 milliseconds. So bring that down to like faster, basically, is one of the things I want to emphasize will be pretty important.
Amazing. Thanks a lot for all these very valuable insights. Any takeaways you want to share with the audience? Any takeaways you want the audience to remember from this panel?
I'll just say that fast is important, but fast is not easy. And so everyone that's building and optimizing for fast, they can't forget that if they just optimize for fast, then they will be known as those that potentially were responsible for a major exploit, and that's bad for everyone. I'm sure Optimus is not on that side of the curve, but many people out there are. So
I can just say we're all responsible for the first billion of users. It doesn't matter centralized with oracles or not. Just go and educate one person today on how to DeFi, how to use oracles, how to install the wallet, so we can make our community bigger.
Great. I guess from my side, it's never underestimate oracles, or never underestimate the complexity of using oracles or data from oracles in a protocol. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you.